guys, welcome back to episode 98. Welcome to Friday. All week I've been showing this jacket and doing some triggers with leather. I know many of you may be in cold climates. I'm not. Right now I'm in Florida. I miss those fall days where it's cold. And you can wear sweaters and jackets. I think this makes really great sounds. Okay, welcome back and welcome again to episode number 98. Welcome to Friday. I hope you guys had a really nice week. I hope you're looking forward to the weekend. And this is my last question from a viewer to end the week. And this was also a very good question. So the comment said, "Hi, I love your content. Could you dive into those first 15 years a bit more and explain how you survived, what you would have done different? Keep it up, and greetings from Belgium." So thank you, Belgium. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate you being here. I hope you're enjoying the channel. I'm doing my best to bring interesting content from an ASMR perspective. So if any of you are new and you're wondering what's going on, I'm incognito. Nobody knows who I am, right? I'm the millionaire next door. I'm in the millionaire protection program. I don't want people to know that I'm as wealthy as I am. And again, wealth is really relative to your expenses anyway, right? But it's all part of the channel. So thank you. Thank you so much for being here. So my first 15 years, yeah, you must be referencing in one of my episodes where I said that my first 15 years I was kind of a train wreck. You know, I got out of college, made a bunch of mistakes. Then the next 15 years, I got my act together. So if any of you are in your 15-year increment right now, and let's say your first 15-year increment, as far as when you've been working, because many of you I know are very young, and so you might be in those early stages of working, and if that's you, then maybe you found my channel because you want to learn more about the motivation behind money. You want to learn more about doing better. And so, you know, you might be in like your year number 4, or year number 5, or year number 6. And I can think back to those 15 years when I was a train wreck, and I know exactly how I felt. I'll never forget how I felt. And so today's episode, I'm just going to do a little bit of review and talk about those years. So when I first got out of college in 1989, I just could not find the motivation. I don't know what was wrong with me. I would think I was suffering from some depression, and I wanted to find a job, but I really struggled, and I don't think I've shared this on the channel before. I really, for some reason, was terrified of interviewing for jobs. I knew I wasn't good at it, and it was just very extremely frustrating. And so my dad, I guess, just let me kind of lay around and didn't really help me at all. Looking back, I don't remember him saying anything to me like, Evan, you've got to get your act together. I wish he would have, because I know I seriously needed help. So that was my first indicator that I knew. I was like, okay, I'm off to the wrong start from, that first year and a half. Then what happened was my brother, who was living in Florida at the time, and I was in Ohio, actually sent me an article in the mail from the newspaper for a company that did video distribution. And I opened up the article and I read it and I said, okay, I'm going to try to get a job here. So I called the company. I talked to somebody in HR, and they said there was a position open. However, and it was a lower level, coordinator type position. But they had already closed out the interview process. So I said, oh no. And the person in HR said, well, you know what? The hiring manager is going to be at a association meeting for video. It's a video association meeting. And I said, really? I said, okay, well, so I got all dressed up and I went to that meeting. I saw him across the room because I saw his name tag once I got closer to him, obviously. And I was like, oh, hi, you're from XYZ company. I said, you're the person I wanted to talk to, and I really sold myself. I remember he said to me, well, come in, the next couple days and, meet my people in my group and we'll interview you. And I said, okay. I actually got that job. Could not believe it. So because I took a little initiative and I went, behind, and I, even though they said that the job was done interviewing, I decided to take it upon myself and I went out and I got that job. So I always look back on that as, I think that was a turning point for me where I started to see my potential, because I just, gone through a year and a half of struggle. I was at that company for 3 years, and then they laid me off because it was a company that did sponsored communications. It was an old company from New York that was in Florida, in a business that was not as popular as it was in the 1950s and the 60s and the 70s. It was sponsored communications. And with the internet coming about and all those sorts of things were really changing. We actually distributed video news releases that were little videos that we would send physically to TV stations all over the country. This is before you could send it through electronic means. I mean, it was really interesting to me, and I loved the concept of sponsored communications. And what that meant was, let's say you're watching a news story about Valentine's Day, but it happens to be sponsored by Hershey. So Hershey put up the money to promote their product, but really it's a news clip, but really it's a commercial, right? It's, like those infomercials that you see, only these were shorter little videos and not the longer ones. So after 3 years there, now we're looking at 1993, 1994, I was out of work. I had already had a bunch of credit card debt, probably at that point 20 or 30,000. From 1990, 91, 92, 93, I was running up my credit cards, just not thinking. I always thought another job would come, a big job would come, and I could just pay this debt off. Well, that big job never came. In 1999, mortgage business, and I decided to get my mortgage broker license, which was really the birth of my fascination with numbers. Because being a mortgage broker, I was not a real successful one. I was for about 1.5 years because the mortgage broker firm that I was working with was just giving me loans to close, even though I was a subcontractor. I was not an employee. I was a contractor. Back in 1994, everybody was refinancing because rates came down, just like they're doing now, or so we think they're going to do, right? In September and October, aren't they saying that rates are going to go down? The Federal Reserve should be bringing them down, so I bet a bunch of people will probably start refinancing their mortgages. And this happened in 1994. Well, by 1994, 1995, it all dried up. Nobody was refinancing anymore. So my boss at that company said, well, Evan, you're just going to have to go out there and network with realtors. So I would go to those brokers opens, real estate agents, and give them my card and say, yeah, refer people to me. I hated it. Absolutely hated it. Hated it. Hated it. I am not a salesperson. So I was very upset, and I had to pivot. So I went to the newspaper and I found an article for a company, and I interviewed. I had a job at a pawn shop for about 4 months. They fired me. Can you believe it? Yeah. They said I wasn't pawn shop material. I was like, okay, that works. I was in their management training program. I didn't know what I was doing. I just needed a paycheck. I couldn't pay my rent. So that was a disaster. Then I fell into another career path, and then in 1998, I got the job with the company that I'm with now. So from 90 to 98, that's 8 years of the 15, right? 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. We have 6 or 7 more. In 1998 is when I started to buckle down. By 1999, I'm like, Evan, you've got to figure out this personal finance stuff. I still wasn't making a lot of money to save a lot of money. I remember the year 2000 came. I was still broke. I was paying all my bills, but I wasn't able to save much, right? The year 2001 comes, 2002, and then 2003. 2003 is the real significant year. So how many years is that? 98, 99, 2001, 2, 3. Yeah, that's about right. So in 2003, I was 37 years old. And so there's your 15 years right there. In 2004, I was starting to feel good about myself. I was making more money. And in 2005, I found the Susie Orman show on CNBC. I then found her book, The Young, Fabulous, and Broke. And I read it, and I started watching the show, and that became my obsession towards doing better with money. And I have to tell you, it was by watching those shows every Saturday night that kept my motivation going for multiple years, which is why I produce this channel, because I'm hoping that people will want to come back, even if I'm just babbling about something, right? But if you hear me babbling about money in your brain, like we talked about this week, it's going to start to click, right? You're going to start to think, oh, okay, yeah, that crazy guy with the hat, he keeps talking about, these things that he did. And so some of you are probably on board, and you're like gung-ho, and you're probably doing great. Maybe you found my channel and you just like to listen to somebody ramble about money in an ASMR format. But for what it's worth, I really honestly have to say that I wasn't learning anything new during all of those years. I was just reinforcing what I already knew and continued to do what I already in the year that you're in. Does it go to a CD? Does it go to a money market? Does it go to an investment? Where does it go? Does it go to pay down debt? And by having that awareness, then you'll get to where you want to be. And again, I'm going to end this episode by saying that, honestly, it was watching that show every Saturday. It could have been anybody, right? It could have been anybody that I just attached myself to and decided that it would be the catalyst to help me continue to do what I was doing. Then, as you guys know, I became a guest on her show in 2012 when my net worth was $200,000. So think about that. My net worth right now is $1.6 with my condo being paid off. Minus 200,000. So my net worth went up. My net worth went up 1.4 million in how many years? 2012 minus 2024. 12 years. What did I say? 1.4. 1.4 divided by 12 years. So on average, is that 116,000? Did I screw that up? 117 times 12. Yeah, that's about right. And so my net worth was going up, let's say 120,000 a year. Do you guys realize how significant that is? When you think about it, if your job is paying you money, but your investments are also paying you money, right? I remember I created an episode once on my podcast that I was like, oh my goodness, I am now making more money on average per year in unrealized gains of my investments than my company was paying me to do my job. That's the value journey that I talk about. That's where that engine gets so large that it then pays you eventually money to live your life so you can quit your job, right? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and close out this episode on this Friday night. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you to my subscriber in Belgium for asking that question. I really appreciate it. I hope that helped explain my 15 years. Oh, you wanted to know, how did I survive? I survived just by eating peanut butter sandwiches occasionally. I mean, I was so broke, but I did what I had to do. And what would I do different? Well, I would have not ran up my credit card debt. I would have had awareness about money early on, and I wouldn't have spent all that money that I ended up having to claim bankruptcy over. If you didn't know that, I claimed bankruptcy in 1995, and I would definitely not do that again. If I could change it, I would have not spent all the money. I wouldn't have claimed bankruptcy, and I just would have tried to become the person that I became earlier than I did. But you know what? That is what life is all about. But if I can encourage at least one of you that is watching right now that can relate to those first 15 years, if you're in there, just know that you can come over here, that your next 15 years can be so much better than the previous, and that's what you want to do. You don't want to go and have 30 years of bad money management, because you will be broke, and we don't want that. Okay, anyway, if you like content like this, please give me a thumbs up. I'd appreciate it. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you again to the Belgian person that asked that question. If you guys are not subscribed, please do so, and I will see you next time.